everyone. We've made it to the original trilogy.
Woo!
Today, we will be discussing Star Wars, A New Hope. You've got me, Red 8, standing by.
You've got me, Greedo. I shot first, Ellie.
And you have me, Zach Weber, Zach Starkiller.
Good one. I'm sorry, I'm busting a blood vessel from Ellie.
Oh, that's what I love to do.
All right, cool. Let's jump right in then to our top 3 moments from this movie.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Zenger.
Okay, my top 3. First one, the time Han shot first.
Oh.
The second one, the time Han shot first. No, I'm joking.
Okay.
But yes, the first one is the time Han shot first.
Okay.
The second one for me would be the attack on the Death Star. The rebel attack on the Death Star.
Oh, okay.
With the X-Wings and the Y-Wings and the pew pew pew.
Pew, pew.
And my third one, and this one might be weird, the meeting on the Death Star with Tarkin, Vader, where Vader does the chokehold, and you kind of see the powers of what he's able to do for the first time. I don't know, just for some reason, that entire scene is very iconic to me, where they're in that meeting room discussing politics of sorts, and I don't know, it's just something about that, like Vader's very menacing, and then someone finally says something back to him, and you find out why no one does that. So those are my top 3 moments.
Okay.
Let's let our guests go first, since, I went first. Like people shoot first.
We'll get into that.
I'm sensing a running theme here.
It might be for this one. Oh, Zach, go ahead.
All right, my favorite moment is it's always been a moment that stuck with me is when they finally land on the Death Star and Vader comes out and he's disturbed. He turns around and he makes a comment on the lines of, I sense a presence. And he just walks away. And I think it's always been kind of I don't want to say eerie moment, but just unique. We've never seen Vader disturbed.
Yeah.
And in that moment, he's disturbed. The fact that he senses Obi-Wan for the first time in almost 20 years. My second one this is kind of cheating, is basically any moment with Ben Kenobi, Alec Guinness. I know that's cheating, but I think he has created a persona for that character that they're still borrowing from liberally, even to this day. And third is obviously the Cantina. You can't beat the Cantina. The Cantina is one of those things where if you had to pick one scene in Star Wars that probably cemented its place in pop culture, if not culture as a whole, it's that scene. It's just iconic is not a strong enough word for it.
Definitely. I was going to go with Alec Guinness myself because I love Ben Kenobi, and my love for him does a little bit more come from the original. I mean, I love what they did with him in the prequel trilogy, but I definitely a good list there. All right, Ellie, like your namesake for this episode, you're going last.
Oh, I said I shot first. Thank you. Okay, well, absolutely love just the scene when Luke is looking over the sunset.
Yeah.
It is just gorgeous. It gives me goosebumps every time I see it. I feel such calm, and I don't know how to describe it, but I love just that image. It's gorgeous. Of course, I'm a huge Luke lover, so when he uses the Force, doesn't use his computer, he just uses the Force to make that the money shot. And then I love when it said, that's no moon, it's a space station. So those are definitely some of my favorite either quotes or scenes or whatever the case may be.
Very good list.
I think it's... I'm sorry, I'm having to think back. I don't think there's ever been a time where everybody's had different moments since we started this list.
Yeah, that is true. Most of the movies, there's at least been one thing that was on everybody's.
Well, this movie has, of course, been out the longest out of any of them. It's the one that we were all... I think I can safely say everyone in this room, this was probably our first introduction to Star Wars was through this movie.
It was mine. Oh, yeah, it was mine, but...
Okay, well, which was your first?
My first introduction to Star Wars was The Phantom Menace, and this is always my Star Wars dinner table story. Is that I was 6 years old when The Phantom Menace came out, And I don't want to say I was dragged to it, because that's not really what it was, though. But I was invited by my mother's friend, and she goes, "Oh, let's go see Star Wars." My mother goes, "Okay, sure." It's probably, if I could pick one day in my life that changed everything for me, I couldn't fathom my life without Star Wars or me as a person. And I kind of got brought to that. And I don't know, I really don't remember much after immediately seeing it. All I can basically say is that thousands of dollars later, I had every single toy from the Phantom Menace line and the Power of the Force, too. So it's one of those things where that was my introduction to it. And I'll save how I got into the original trilogy later on, though. But really, the Phantom Menace was the Star Wars breakthrough for me.
Oh, interesting. So sorry for me for misjudging that then.
Not at all.
But
well, and his comment earlier about how you've never seen Vader frazzled for most of us.
Yeah, that would,
yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have noticed. We wouldn't have known any different because that's the first time that we'd be seeing him. So
True. All right, well, I guess let's move into our, plot quick overview segment. And for this one, I tried to think of something to do, but to be honest, everyone knows this at this point. We're doing Star Wars, so
if you don't, go watch the movie and then come back and watch and listen to the podcast.
Evil Empire, Band of Rebels, planets go boom. And a small moon not a moon, but a space station goes boom too. Everyone cheers. Chewbacca does not get a medal.
Lots of boom. Aww.
He doesn't watch the movie.
Poor Wookiee.
Yeah.
Oh boy, poor Chewbacca.
I know.
But now we're gonna move into, of course, our. I guess let's kind of just discuss this movie, I guess, as a whole, because I think this is the point now where we're gonna bring up the long-awaited, heavily debated title card of original versus special edition. It's something that can divide fans. It's something that we're going to try to handle with grace on here for certain moments.
I'm bringing out the gloves.
Oh, I don't need gloves. I got brass knuckles.
Oh, snap.
Actually, no, I got a blaster and I'm going to shoot first. There. Enough said. But, no, I think where we should start with is, let's start with our favorite moments. Go each person, our favorite moments from the special edition of what was added. And then I guess we'll do a discussion. Oh no! Wait. Actually, let's do our favorite and most hated moments, because I feel like it will come out in the discussion our most hated moments. So if we save it for the end, it's not going to be a surprise.
Okay, that is true.
So I'm going to be nice and let our guest go first for this one.
Okay. I'm going to kind of tip my hand early on. My favorite moment from the special editions, and there's only one, and this is to tell you how I feel. The only scene I feel that's worth including in all that is when Han is chasing the stormtroopers down the corridors of the Death Star, and he eventually turns the wrong way, and he has the hangar full of them. Mm-hmm. That is a much better scene than having him, I guess, corner them in the broom closet, where for some reason they decide to turn around and start shooting back at him. That doesn't make sense. And plus, back in the 70s, they couldn't make 400 things of armor.
Yeah.
Never mind, they didn't have the computer technology to duplicate a stormtrooper a dozen times. I like that. Other than that, you can keep it all. I don't want any changes. It's like some of the scenes, like in the other films, like Empire. Like, I like what they did with Cloud City, not to get off topic, but I like the fact they kind of put stuff in the background of Cloud City. That's fine. I have no problem with window dressing. I hate when you put crap in the frame for no reason.
Interesting.
And it's just shoveled on just for the sake of, look, we can do this now. And my favorite part is that if you go back through all the different iterations of home video releases, and it's that every single one does something slightly different.
Yes, they do. They truly do.
And it's the point where in going to, and so I'll just slightly go into what I don't like. I don't hate the special editions. I hate them more in a broad sense because Lucas should have known better. I don't know why this became such an issue with him over the years. But there's the most egregious offense, I'd say, is probably just them going through Mos Eisley on the speeder. Just because there's just so much stuff that's shoveled in there. It's just you have all the different creatures, and some of it's not bad. Like, and you have like a Jawa in the background doing something with, I can pardon my lack of Star Wars knowledge, with the creature that's kind of like a dinosaur-esque. That's fine. That doesn't
Oh,
bother me.
the one with the longer neck. I was about to say
Yeah.
not the dewbacks, that the
Not the
store.
Dewback.
Yeah.
That bothers me too. But that's
So
like I
you
said,
so you like the puppet by the cantina as opposed to the CG one randomly there.
I like the problem with the CG though is that it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
I don't mind anything if it blends in appropriately. To me, I like things in bad taste. Like if you want to do stuff like that, that's fine though. But you got to make it blend in appropriately. And with that, it just one of the most going back to the cantina, there's the Wolfman who's in the cantina, and Lucas actually digitally replaces him twice. If you watch the Blu-ray, the Wolfman's in 3 scenes in the original, or when I say original, I'm meaning the Laserdisc cut, because that's the cut I have, is the Laserdisc version. In the original Laserdisc cut, the Wolfman's there in 3 scenes. And in the 2011 Blu-rays, he's actually digitally removed the Wolfman twice. And I don't get why. It's such a weird thing to edit out, or to replace technically.
It really is.
And I'll leave it at that. There's more things I could go on. Almost all the changes bother me to some capacity, but I'll move on from there.
Well, we'll probably get to them in our discussion. So I guess we should point out, because I mean, you just made a good point of how you saw the originals. I actually I found our VHS copies that were from the early 90s, and that's why I originally watched them as when I was a kid. I have the DVD versions from 2007, where it has the special edition and the, like, quote-unquote uncut versions of the original.
The bonus feature disc version?
Yes. And
I have that too.
That's the closest thing I think I can get to saying, the unedited, even though that has some alterations in it still, but me finding a VCR right now is something I'm not really a fan of doing. So I guess that's my comparison of that. Ellie, I think you're in the same boat.
Not to interrupt, but I have a question. Your VHS versions,
yeah,
are those the ones with the Leonard Maltin interview in the beginning?
I don't know. I seriously, like, I found them when I was going through stuff and grabbed those and the special edition ones. I actually just went and grabbed our version of them, and you said that it is the version that has the interview on it?
Yep, Leonard Maltin.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't watched these in probably 15 years, maybe. It's like I said, they're on VHS, so I mean, I don't have a VCR right now, so
right.
And it's not one of those I need to go run out and get. But like I said, I do the DVD ones, even though those ones have some alterations to them. Everything kind of has some alterations where they kind of did something to them, I feel, at some point. But I guess I'll do mine now, because Ellie has kind of put herself into the place where she will go last for the entire time we're here, because she decided to say a statement earlier. So I guess I'll do.
You've got jokes.
I do. I got plenty of them, and you've set me up for all of them tonight. All right. So my thing is this: what I like about the special edition is I kind of like. I guess the thing I like most is the touch-ups to the, like, star battles and stuff, like where they're taking off from Yavin and you actually are seeing the ships come up, very close to the screen instead of these little dots flying off. When they're going towards the Death Star, you have that scene where you see all the ships, flying by Yavin and everything, and I kind of like that. I liked also there's the battles on the Death Star, like over the Death Star, where those got touched up. Another one is when they blast off from Mos Eisley, the takeoff of the Millennium Falcon. I like those touch-ups.
Yeah.
And I kind of like a lot of this stuff with the set dressing and everything to an extent. I will admit the Mos Eisley scene was a little over the top at times, per se, kind of. But now I'm going to go to the other side of this. And this is going to get venomous. Not towards Ellie, mind you. I'm not going to direct any direct anger towards her with this next statement. Han shoots first. Han shoots first every single time, in my opinion. I don't like that they keep changing that. It is a character arc for him that he goes from somebody who would just shoot somebody in cold blood and has a character development. that is something that is stolen from him by him shooting at the same time, or him shooting second, or him responding to it. He shoots him in cold blood. And here's the thing, that's something I can vaguely live with. It's the Jabba scene that has, over the years, it's grown to be something I just kind of despise more and more, if that makes any sense. I think the buildup of Jabba as a character from New Hope to Return, when you actually see him, is an interesting buildup, because you're like, who is this guy? Who is Han running from? Who is Han scared of, to the point where he's running across the galaxy? And even, running from the Empire and everything, to try to even avoid this guy. And the Empire has to enlist somebody, like Boba Fett later. But I just do not like the conversation between him and Han. It steals the allure of Jabba. It also puts Boba Fett on the planet, which I don't know if I want to get into a Boba Fett discussion right now or not. I don't like him being on the planet, because it's kind of put to the fan theory that he's the one that actually killed Aunt Owen and Aunt Peru. I don't think that happened, in my personal opinion. I don't go with that theory. I don't know, the whole scene with Jabba, I don't think it needed to be there. It doesn't flow right with the rest of the scenes too. There, I said my piece. Everything else, like I said. Ellie, your turn to either make the internet hate you or love you.
Oh, well, I always go for hate me, because that's just too much fun. I disagree with both of you.
Blasphemy.
Stupid
Got hit over a Star Wars card.
Dumb girl and her opinions. Yes, there are parts of these. Now, just to put it back a little bit, I love the originals. That's what I saw first.
Yes.
So it's nothing against the originals. I'll still pop in the original and watch it. That's not what I'm saying here. But I'm okay with change. I'm okay with editing. Clearly, everybody out there that says they don't like remakes and they don't like this, and they don't like that, are two-faced, because all of these box offices would not be blowing up like they are if you really didn't like them. So I think a lot more people don't mind them as much as, like, maybe somebody says they don't. They just don't want other people to know that they like them. So it's cooler to say, I don't like them. Yes, there are, of course, some parts that I can't stand that they made edits to, but there's a lot that I love. So, I don't care for a lot of the creatures that they added into it.
The Mos Eisley
scene. It's not just that. It's part of it is the little womp rats.
Oh,
they're so blurry, and it just looks terrible. The scene with Jabba and Hans walks behind him, and a rat, like that whole scene when he's like walking behind him and he
steps on his tail.
That looks horrendous. It just looks terrible. So yes, there are some parts that I do not care for, but I love. I'm sorry. And Obi-Wan, when he does that sound.
Oh yeah, the crate dragon call.
Come on.
That has been changed several times, actually.
That is ridiculous. It's silly. I don't like it. But for the most part, if you really watch, there's some great videos on YouTube and some other places that kind of does the heavy work for you. But if you watch some of those and see a lot of the comparisons side by side of all the extra details of the landscapes and this, like you were saying, the space battles and just the details, that kind of stuff, I just think it makes it so much better for the newer audiences.
Yes.
So clearly it was obvious that they did it to try to bring people in that are used to better graphics and better stuff like that. So like I said, not everything needed to be done, and obviously there were stuff I didn't care for, but overall, I don't think it's as bad as what some people complain about. So.
Fair enough.
Yes. Sorry.
Well,
Sorry.
Well, funny thing with the crate dragon was, I'm not sure how in tune you guys were when that was first released, because that clip was released, I think it was leaked on YouTube right before the Blu-rays came out. I want to say maybe a month beforehand. And everybody kind of sat there on Twitter back in like August of 2011 saying, is this real? is this actually what's happening? And everyone was convinced it was fake because it sounded so goofy.
Yeah.
And I remember Lucasfilm issuing a press release saying, "Yup, it's real." Because I think at the same time, I think that came out like on I'm just making this up here. That came out like on a Tuesday, and the very next day was the Return of the Jedi Vader when he's about to pick up the Emperor and throw him down the chasm, going, "No, no!" And everyone's like, "Oh my lord!" There's no. Like, it came out one after the other. Everyone's like, "No way!" And then I think it was that Thursday, Lucasfilm's like, "Yup, it's real." And everyone, I think that was probably the lowest. Like, I guess if Star Wars fandom had a collective low,
Yeah.
And again, I might be projecting my feelings onto the fandom, but you can just feel there was a sense of deflation in Star Wars at that exact moment.
All right, I'm going to reveal a behind-the-scenes thing real quick, and I promise after this we're going to start talking positively about this movie and positively about Star Wars. Because I feel we've...
I haven't said anything negative at all, actually. Maybe that's you two.
Anyways.
I'll take the Brian. I'll be negative, Nelly. I'm fine with that title.
Here's the thing. I was holding off for the longest time. I was waiting, patiently waiting, because we have the DVD, as I said, we have VHS, DVD copies, and we do have the Blu-ray collection now. And that came about, and I can tell you the exact moment it came about. When we announced that we were going to do Star Wars as the year-long celebration, we went to go watch the DVD versions, and Ellie straight up was like, they have these on Blu-ray now, right? Why don't we own them? And I was like, I'm waiting for them to put out the original versions. I want them on Blu-ray. I want the uncut versions on Blu-ray. And now looking back, it's kind of one of those things I wonder now. I'm like, and like I said, I don't want to start a huge debate online about this, but I don't feel if they tried to transition the old movies to Blu-ray, if they would do it justice. I feel like it's something to where the movie's older, the films deteriorate over time, and this is something that's been pointed out several times. It's just something that I think the best version we're going to get of them now is the Blu-rays. I'd love to see and I know that people are splicing together different versions of the movie to try to make a high-definition version of it. And kudos to you. I salute people who are doing that, but for me, I kind of am like, you know what, the special editions are kind of the best we're going to get, because I've watched the DVD versions, and I mean, I've watched them, I've watched them with them on and I'm not trying to be arrogant here, I've watched them DVD into a Blu-ray player, which is going to upscale it onto a 4K TV, which is also trying
enough. Stop telling everybody we have a 4K TV.
Trying to upscale it onto that, and it's a larger TV too. So it's one of those things. It shows its age at that point. And like I said, maybe it's the formats trying to upscale themselves, but at the same time, I think the Blu-rays are the best we're gonna get.
It's like, okay, so it's like you love Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
it was a great game.
Yeah,
when you played it, I'm aging myself a little bit, but when I played it, I thought it was the best thing ever. Oh my gosh, the graphics are crazy. Oh my, you know what I'm saying? But if you go and download it on PlayStation Network right now and play it on your PlayStation, it looks like complete and utter crap. And I can't play it anymore because
Ellie, did you just say that the original Star Wars is complete and utter crap?
No, I'm trying to help you.
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm getting my flaming torches and pitchforks right now.
I'm saying that it's just stuff that when you saw it when you were younger, you do remember it differently, and then you go back and try to watch it again. That's where you appreciate the little bit of help in upgrading.
And that's the thing. I do enjoy watching the DVD version. It's just one of those things to where you can see a lot more issues with it then, and you can see. Okay,
I'm gonna push back on this. Oh man, you're gonna have fun with me on this.
Okay,
one.
Cool.
All right. So this is how I was introduced to the original trilogy. It was as I saw The Phantom Menace, and my father. I don't want to say my father was a cheapskate, but he was a practical man. And so what he did, my father was an older gentleman, and back during the late 80s, he got a free subscription to HBO for I think the summer, so 3 months.
And recorded them recorded them that way?
Yes, and he didn't just record Star Wars that way. He recorded everything he could. He bought 100 blank videotapes and recorded any movie. Oh, he had a cabinet full of old VHS movies. And so when I eventually came back from The Phantom Menace, and I said, "Oh, I want to watch Star Wars," and he goes, "Oh, I have those." And so what he popped into the television was the versions that HBO played back in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that was the version I was introduced to. It wasn't until 2002 with the release of Attack of the Clones that my mother, or I insisted on it, I wanted a store-bought copy of the films. And obviously by 2002, that was the special editions. And I really wasn't, how was I? I was 9 going on 10. I wasn't really cognizant of changes. Like, I might have noticed a couple things were missing, but who, again, a 9-year-old doesn't care about that. And so over time, and then like you, during late 2006, I remember reading, at that time I was on the computer, I read forums, and I'm like, oh, they were talking about Best Buy had some sort of collector's edition in this tin can of the original films. And I still have no idea how I convinced my father to spend $90 on it when it wasn't my birthday or Christmas. And he did. He went out and bought it for me. And I remember at the time saying, no, this is kind of like a waste of money. I already have these. Because I already had the DVD versions when they were released in 2004. And so they were just kind of something I always kind of kept in my closet. They were there just in case I ever needed them. And then the Blu-rays came out. And obviously, I was there day one for the Blu-rays. Like, I sat there. I pre-ordered them from Amazon. Amazon didn't ship them in time, so I ran out to Best Buy to buy them just to make sure I had them. And as time went on since then, I honestly cannot watch the Blu-rays. To me, Star Wars is a lived-in future, and the Blu-rays are too slick. They're too polished. Star Wars should not look that clean and sterile, which is how they look to me. And that's, even though I have the Blu-rays, I always go back to my 2006 Laserdisc ports of they're official. They're officially, this for your listeners, they are officially sanctioned. I'm not watching something that's illegal. I'm not watching a torrent or anything burned on a DVD. So I always go back to those. Even as I was preparing for this episode, I always go back to my Laserdisc rips. Because to me, that's Star Wars. Star Wars is meant to look dirty. It's not meant to look clean. And I feel, even as I was watching that YouTube video that Ellie was referencing, where that guy did a fantastic job putting A next to B and saying, you compare which is better, the original or the special editions. Even watching that, it's too clean for me. I just don't like that. It just, even like the do-back scene where they fight, look, sir, droids. Even that, you have the quasi-imperial shuttle taking off in the background. You have the do-back acting up. And you have another one, and it's like, ugh. It's like, no. And I think even that, how I look at Star Wars, and I guess that's what makes me a weird millennial in the sense that I was introduced with the Phantom Menace, but I was brought up on the non-special editions. And that's where, and that's one thing that, like you were going with, you both were saying that the Blu-rays are the definitive edition. And that absolutely terrifies me. And this is also why, again, not to start a fight like you guys are saying, but Lucas is to blame because he has deliberately kept those under lock and key, which I'm not sure if we'll get into what Lucas has done with these films and why he won't release them. But it really is, even if Disney does not want to consider these canon, they, in a high definition format, they should be out in the public space. Even if they made them exclusively for film colleges, but they need to be in the public space in an official capacity, in high definition.
So, I totally get what you're saying, and that's why when listeners listen to our episodes, they know that I love that everybody has their own opinion, so I'm totally cool with that. I think the reason and where you're coming from, though, is more nostalgia than the quality of the movie, just because that's how you were grown up on it, and it gives you good feels when you watch those versions because it makes you think of when you were younger and your family and all that stuff. So, but I see both sides of it. I can, that. I mean, so I totally agree. That's cool.
Like I said, I mean, yes, I'd love the Blu-ray versions, but at the same time, I'm kind of being a realist in the sense of we haven't got them yet. Who knows when we're going to get them? Might as well buy the Blu-rays and.
You want to know why we haven't gotten them, right?
Oh, because Lucas has them.
Well,
lock and key.
Why Lucas? Why specifically we haven't got? Well, there's you guys probably heard that not even a couple months ago. Every few months, there's always a rumor going around of, oh man, there's a 4K version of the original trilogy floating around.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't buy the Blu-rays for the longest time, because I was like, no, there's a rumor out there.
Well, the thing about it is, there is and without going into too much history of what Lucas did with the special editions, was that back. Oh God, where was it? This was back. I think it was The People versus George Lucas. That documentary, which is its own thing. Without getting into the politics of that, was that they referenced an article or a statement that Lucasfilm PR put out saying that when Lucas made the special editions, he physically altered the negative.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, and when I heard that was I heard that in college. And I was that didn't make sense to me. And this give again a little bit more context about who I am. Was that in college I was a film studies minor, and I was best friends with the people who ran the film studies department. And the head of the department was a former AFI American Film Institute film preservist. And I asked her. I said, obviously, as you guys know, Star Wars is everything. Everybody knows Star Wars. And I said, I don't want to say rumor. That's why I still call it. I went up to her and I said, they claim George Lucas or Lucasfilm claims that they physically altered the negative. And she turned around to me and goes, it is unheard of to ever touch a negative. Unheard of, because it's so easy to make a duplicate. It's kind of like, imagine you have a document in your hands. I'm not gonna go overboard and say like the Declaration of Independence, but let's say you have like the deed to your home, and you need a copy of it for whatever reason. You either just want a copy to show your best friend, or your kid wants a copy to sit there use it as a coloring book. Whatever reason, you're going to make a photocopy of it just for the sense of, you know what, the original is too precious to mangle with, and by making a copy, I can do whatever I want with it, and I don't have to worry about it. And that was her analogy, is that it just doesn't make sense. There's no reason to tamper with a negative. And so for the last that was almost 6 years ago now, I had that conversation with her. And I think within the last year, Lucasfilm, or whoever it was, I think it was, or maybe even Disney. Disney has a historian or whoever it was working with Lucasfilm. This is all in-house with the Walt Disney Company. And they reiterated the statement from Lucasfilm saying they did alter the negative. And even though that's twice now, and I have to assume it's true just because usually you hear the same thing enough times, it tends to be true when it's not something that's very controversial. But it doesn't make sense. And this is what I believe is the excuse as to why they keep saying that. Because of Directors Guild rules, every time Lucas made a change to Empire or Jedi, he needed to go, well, back when Irving Kershner was still alive, but like Richard Marquand. Every time he made a change, Richard Marquand was not alive to give his consent to that, because the Directors Guild says you have to. It's a director's film. There's protections built into that. But all that Lucas had to do basically is write a check to Marquand's estate, and they'd say, "Sure, do whatever you want." Because I doubt Richard Marquand's widow, if she's still alive, or if he was even married, would even care about that. And I imagine that's what happened with Irving Kershner back in 2011. The problem is that Lucas is still alive. And I don't mean problem. I mean that with all due respect to Lucas. So even if Disney said, okay, and what do you think? Disney knows how much money they're sitting on, that if they released a 4K version of unaltered original trilogy, that would make, again, that'd be a top 10 Blu-ray, or at that point, whatever you call it, UHD seller for all time. The problem is they'd have to go to the Directors Guild, and Lucas would have to personally sign off on it. And that would never happen while he's alive.
Because I'm going to go make more prequels.
Well, exactly. And that's what, and I would even at this point, I'd be hard pressed that even someone like Steven, let's say Lucas dropped dead tomorrow for the sake of argument.
Yeah.
I doubt even like Spielberg, and obviously considering that Kathleen Kennedy and her husband Frank Marshall are all in that orbit, I doubt even they would even request that. It's one of those things where I think we are never going to get in remaster. Who knows? They might even have the remastered copy right now. This wishful thinking, but it will never get a mass public release because it would require a sign-off of his estate, and I think his daughter and his family at this point wouldn't even sign off on it. So maybe when we're all old men and old ladies, maybe then we'll be in the nursing home saying, oh man, we're finally getting that. It's only been 70 years, but we're finally getting it.
It's beamed straight into my brain now.
Exactly. And maybe at that point, maybe that will be the nostalgia just talking with that and the dementia. Maybe we'll finally convince ourselves we got the original trilogy. And that's what I think the shame of it is. I think between Lucas's vindictiveness to the fandom and plus the fandom's contempt and disdain for Lucas in recent years kind of created this immovable object and unstoppable force colliding to where nobody's going to be happy.
All right, cool. All right, I'm putting a pin in the special edition discussion for now, because I'm sure we could make an entire episode out of that on either Star Wars junk or Zeng This. So I was about to say we need to move on forward, but this was all fun and stuff that I remember going through, and like I've said before, I've told Ellie I don't know how many times, hey, they're going to be putting the originals out on Blu-ray, they're going to be doing it, and it never happened. So it is kind of an interesting thing to look back that way. But let's kind of discuss, I guess, impact on the series and culture that this, Star Wars culture obviously began with this movie and everything, but I guess my thing is just Vader. Vader to me was kind of established in this. You get the beginning of the movie, and here's the thing. I find it very interesting about thinking about the beginning of the movie, where there's the blockade runner and the Star Destroyer chasing them over Tatooine. I just think that's so interesting in how much exposition and how much story is developed in just that little bit of time. You get so much information out of there. You get that who is this Vader guy, and you see that he's a very formidable individual. You get to meet Princess Leia and see her defiance towards the Empire. So I just thought that was just such an interesting scene. And then we're introduced to Luke, who lives a life that looks nothing, that has nothing to do with the world's battle that's going on. So I guess I just wanted to kind of jump in and say, it's such an interesting way to go into a movie and everything. Ellie, I'm sure you have some stuff for this. You're always knocking it out of the park with this section.
I usually like the themes
and
that sort of thing. It depends on the order you watch the series, of course, depending on how Vader impacts you.
True.
I'm just saying it just kind of depends. It was a great movie, and obviously it has gone to inspire so many things in that genre. So I think that's the main inspiration, is just the fact that the main impact is
on the series.
On the series is just that it's gone on to just influence so many things over the years and bring more fans to fantasy and space shows and movies, and it's crazy now how much stuff has come from this first movie. Comic books and regular books and toys and
movies and more movies and TV and
yeah, it's just this single movie has inspired so much for so many people. It's awesome. It's amazing.
Well, I just got a question real quick, because I'm kind of just a quick little question for both of you. Who's the villain of this movie? Like, who would you pin as the main bad guy? Like, one person in this movie?
I don't know. First impressions, you might think Han Solo is a pretty shady character.
Okay.
But it kind of depends on how you look at it. But the rebels are technically, I don't want to say, It's a hard
The rebels are technically bad guys in the sense of, quote unquote, the Empire is the established, governing body, and you're rooting for basically a rebel faction that's going out and attacking the establishment and trying to bring it down because they believe that they're right, while at the same time the Empire believes that they're right.
Because there are a lot of places that are okay with what's happening.
Well, we can get into that.
I'm just saying, but
I was about to say that's expanded on more in the new canon.
Right.
So we will save that discussion for later. But
I'll put a zip in it. Kirk.
But okay, so you're not going to pin any one character as the bad guy.
Not really.
Well, okay. I'm gonna short answer: Darth Vader. Darth Vader.
So yours would be Vader.
Vader. Short answer: Vader. Long answer is, and this goes back to the way of, again, not to go back to the special editions thing, but looking at this film is that this is easily the smallest scale Star Wars film.
I'll agree with that.
It's the smallest. It's contained. Because obviously when it was created, and that's, I think, if Star Wars 1977 ever had, if its greatest triumph is, considering everything that came after it, it works so perfectly as a self-contained story.
It does.
You can watch Star Wars and say, you know what, I'm done, I'm happy, and never watch anything else, not count between what Lucas did afterwards or what Disney's doing right now, and you could feel perfectly satisfied. Which is, think about, for a lot of audiences in 1977, for a good part of 1978, that's what they did. They had this, and that was more than enough for people back then. Which now sounds a little odd, considering that we live in the era of cinematic universes, where, again, chances are we'll all be dead before they finish making Star Wars films, and Marvel now makes, I don't know, about 3 dozen a year. It's refreshing to have a film where you can just, it's a single chapter, and yes, there is so much stuff going on afterwards, there's so much stuff going on before it, and I know even with some of the books they're doing now, there's stuff going on during a lot of the events of this film. It's genuinely refreshing to have that, where, considering what goes on, just to have this, it's perfect. It's nice. It ties a nice little bow on the end, except for Chewbacca, as we say, it's not getting medal.
Apparently that's supposed to be explained. That's supposed to be explained, I think, some comic or something that's probably no longer canon.
I would imagine it has to be. Everything's explained.
The explanation is their Wookiees apparently have there's no intrinsic value to them to getting a medal. It doesn't mean anything to them, sort of thing. Like, them doing the job is the reward for them. Them getting that is sort of a slight at them. Like, that's supposedly what it's supposed to be. I think, if I remember correctly. And someone on the internet, please, by all means, if I'm incorrect about that, please point it out. Which I'm sure that will happen. But no, the reason I asked that villain thing is because here's my answer. Tarkin. Tarkin, in my opinion, is the bad guy. Vader's there, but as Leia very easily says, "Oh, I knew somebody was pulling Vader's leash." Tarkin is the ultimate bad guy in this. He's the one that orders Alderaan's destruction. He's also the one that had an opportunity to technically save himself, but was too prideful to do so. And he's such an interesting character that I just enjoy, just that he's somebody that doesn't... Vader and him have a mutual respect for each other. But at the same time, the Death Star is Tarkin's domain. When Vader's there, he takes orders from Tarkin, and that is something that I just think that that's an interesting dynamic as a character, as character development and everything for that, because you're introduced to Vader as he's the bad guy, but then you're introduced to this other guy, it's like, no, he's actually the bad guy. But there is a mention of an emperor at one point in a discussion, and that, I think, was a very... I know that this movie is supposed to stand alone, but they seeded enough stuff to where there is some interesting stuff in there. And maybe that's why I like that the scenes in the meeting room on the Death Star is because it's Tarkin and Vader at their best in that movie, sort of running the show and showing how, deliciously evil they can both be. Vader using his powers and Tarkin using his wit and his, command over the Death Star. So that's just something I wanted to point out that I enjoyed. But I think we've spent some time on the bad guys. Let's go over to the good guys. Luke, Han, unless you're Ellie, Ben Kenobi, or Obi-Wan Kenobi. Being introduced to him was something that I think resonates with me more and more the more I watch it. Is just Alec Guinness did such a great job with him, and I just really enjoyed the character being introduced to him as this, first kind of as this, oh, he's some crazy old guy who, doesn't know what he's talking about, to he's one of the greatest Jedis ever. Mm-hmm. Did anyone else get that watching it?
Yeah.
I mean, mind you, I'm excluding the prequels for this discussion.
Right, we're just focusing on this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, we're focusing on this, and that's the thing. It's just he had, just such an interesting backstory to him and everything. I just thought that was really cool. And then it sort of develops through the other movies where you get more stuff that comes out, including one of my favorite lines, everything I told you was true from a certain point of view.
Right. Well, and I'd like to skip backwards a little bit in time.
Oh, go for it.
To giving Han a hero label. I disagree.
Wait, hold on a second. I don't want to get into this again, but are you saying that he's a bad guy? That he would shoot somebody first before the other person even had an opportunity to pull their gun, even though the gun was aimed at him?
Whether he shoots somebody first or he recognizes that he's going to be shot, so he will just be faster than the other person. They both shoot at the same time. Wink, wink. He just wins the draw. Leaving that conversation.
Okay. For the 15th time this episode.
Let's be honest. It takes a little bit for Han to earn his hero status.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
I don't think he deserves to have it in this movie. You're talking about somebody it's obviously he loves Chewie.
Yeah.
There's
they have a bond.
So he clearly cares about Chewie. So I'm not saying that he's completely heartless and doesn't care about anybody. And you obviously start to see him turn a little bit through the movie.
And through the rest of the movies, but we'll get to that.
But we're not talking about those movies. We're talking about this movie.
I know, I'm just saying.
And so the point is like you mentioned, it's nice to see his character development. Mm-hmm. But definitely, the end scene where he comes in at the last minute,
saves the day.
Helps save the day. I don't honestly truly believe that was all for him to be, trying to help him be a hero. That was for more notoriety for him, for pats on the back for himself because of his ego.
So I was about to say, so you're saying he won an ego boost from the situation.
So he doesn't necessarily do that because he's a good guy. He's taking advantage of a situation that he can play to his,
Interesting. I guess we'll see how that plays out in our continuing discussions. I'm sorry if that sounded snarky, by the way. It wasn't meant to be. I realized as I said it.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't say that he doesn't eventually become
a hero. No. I think you're taking a very interesting take on this, and I'd love to see where this goes throughout our other discussions.
Stay tuned, guys. Stay tuned.
And
girls.
As we progress through the rest of the Star Wars movies. So that's very interesting, Ellie. I mean, I took a stand about the government and everything in the prequel trilogy. Apparently, you've decided to take a stand on Han Solo's character. So I am actually legitimately intrigued to see what you pull from this.
Woo! Yes.
Oh man, the Han Solo spin-off film just got a whole lot more interesting.
if it can ever get made.
Hopefully, one day. Hopefully.
But
one thing I just want with the Han Solo is that it depends. I get your argument. I understand it. And the thing about those, it depends what sort of lens you look at the character under. And I think if you look at it under the lens of just Star Wars, exclusively the first film, he has the third act change of heart. It's kind of, he's completely removed. He doesn't want to deal with this. And I think Han Solo looks at it in that there's no money to be made wading into this war. He's waded into it once when he drops his cargo, when he's boarded by the Imperials, which Greedo references during their shootout. Mm-hmm. Or technically, it's not really a shootout if one person doesn't even get to fire.
Yes, Ellie, it's not a shootout.
We should have a little counter, a little bing for each time we reference that scene. But no.
Yes, the sound effect.
Yes, a little bing each time. But no. But going back to it, though, is that you look at it that way, and he does. By the end of the film, he's awarded the medal. He's a hero. They do not award somebody a medal if they're not recognized as a hero. And considering the fact that in just the lens of Star Wars, the rebellion is the good guy. Like you were saying, Zenger, you have the opening shot of the little minuscule blockade runner, and you have the giant Star Destroyer chasing after it. That tells you everything you need to know about Star Wars. Like, that scene alone just tells you. And so with the context of looking at it, under that lens, he's a hero by the end of that film. But what Ellie was saying, Han Solo doesn't really earn the position of hero, not just given to it by the script. He doesn't earn it until the end of Empire, where he self-sacrifices in order to kind of pacify Vader and Boba Fett for the time being. That's where Han Solo earns his status of hero. And I think that's where you have, and that's why, like, going back to why I said why this is so refreshing, is that you can look at it those two different ways. The character of Han Solo, and I want to say maybe it's just him. I think Obi-Wan's character changes a little bit, and obviously Vader's changes tenfold because the whole Vader's and going back to you were saying about who's the main villain of this film, and this one little backtracking on that for a second. Vader, just looking at Star Wars, is the greatest henchman in cinematic history in Star Wars.
I cannot wait till we discuss Empire.
And that's where, again, not to go back to criticism of the prequels, and what Lucas did though was that Vader is not space Jesus in Star Wars. In the first one, he's not that at all. He's a henchman, and that's basically what he is. But the problem is that if you look at most movies, even like you go back to the James Bond films, you have Mr. Jinx, right? Who's the guy with the metal teeth?
Oh, Jaws. No. It's just Jaws.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
and
it's Jaws who's the one with the hat?
He was Mr. Jinx, right? The one with the hat.
Ellie, come on, you're
I can't remember what the
All right,
Odd Job.
All right, everybody knows what I'm talking about. So,
is it Odd Job?
But you think about those. Yes, you always have in Bond. You have Blofeld.
Yeah.
You always have the villain who's in charge stroking the cat, which is what Tarkin is. Tarkin's the guy stroking the cat.
Right.
But it's the henchman that always has the thing to do, that always confronts our hero. And that's one thing I don't think Star Wars gets enough credit for, is that you do not, at the end of this, have a one-on-one fight between the protagonist and the antagonist. And if you think about that...
Oh my gosh, you don't really.
You don't get that. And that's, again, not to get into The Force Awakens, but that's one of my largest criticisms about The Force Awakens is, and that's why Lucas, along with everything else he did with Star Wars, that's why it works so well. You do not get that one-on-one confrontation. You get something very, very, very similar to it in the sense of the Death Star trench fight or space battle, where you have Vader's just about to get Luke, and then obviously Han Solo shows up. You get right to the edge of that, though, but you do not get that one-on-one confrontation. You don't get that until the subsequent film. And that's another reason. And that's one thing I feel a lot of people do not respect or even recognize that Star Wars does.
True. Speaking of the trench run, so this is, like I said, this movie also has some of the most stuff done on it, as in like and you know, the prequels. I mean, that's all right. I know that the original trilogy has some of the most looked over stuff of it. And I just got a fun question for each of you, and if I'm wrong, internet, point me out on this. The trench that they are flying on the Death Star, where is it on the Death Star, Ellie?
I don't know.
You don't have a guess of where it is.
In the middle.
Oh, so you're saying the equator band around it?
I would assume, but I'm not sure.
Okay, Zach.
Okay, I'm gonna go really specific. I'm gonna say the Northwest region, lot 378. 53 minutes, 62 seconds. I'm going to go really specific. Well, I know that's completely wrong, but...
It's supposed to be on top of... It's actually, the trench is supposed to be part of the, like, I guess, pole, the North Pole of the Death Star is from some stuff I've read, which is interesting, because a lot of people do think it's the Equator Trench, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to actually be the... Now, I might be wrong on that. Like I said, that stuff I've read... And with Star Wars now, who knows canon or non-canon? But it's just something that I always thought it was the equator thing until it got pointed out. But yeah, so I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, well, speaking of the trench run.
Okay, cool. I figured you had something waiting in the wings.
Well, actually, that whole scene was inspired by 633 Squadron. They actually kind of based that whole run off of a scene in it where they had Royal Air Force planes They were flying really low
Mm-hmm.
to attack a factory, and the base was at the cliff of a canyon. So it's
Oh.
kind of cool. That's where the inspiration came from for that whole scene with the trench run and everything.
Well, what other inspirations did this movie have? Since I guess we've moved into that now.
Hidden Fortress. It has similar music and wipe cuts, so that was another inspiration. And also, we mentioned this movie for one of the other ones. I can't remember right off. You might remember from previous conversations, but remember the Dam Busters?
Yeah.
We mentioned that one. Some of the dialogue is straight from that movie into this movie. And I thought that was kind of cool. And Gilbert Taylor, who was the cinematographer, also filmed the special effects sequences for the Dam Busters. So it's kind of neat that some of those similarities and inspirations that moved into Star Wars.
I know that it was also inspired by, several samurai movies.
Yes.
I also know that Flash Gordon, ironically, is another inspiration for it as well. And I'm sure that, there's tons of other stuff, but also I know that it has gone on, as we said earlier, to inspire numerous
So
other
much.
stuff.
Yeah. What do you think, is there any particular theme that everybody got from this movie? It doesn't have to be a long discussion, but just like a kind of a quick
I don't know. I'm
point.
trying to think of the whole movie now, like as a beat by beat, with how it. I guess it's kind of. I don't know. It's just interesting. The whole Luke wants adventure. Mm-hmm. Like it's very apparent that you've got this young kid who wants adventure.
He wants to get out and do stuff. And he's
he
stuck
wants,
as a farm hand.
and he's stuck.
All his friends have already left.
Yeah, all of his friends have
Yeah.
left. He's stuck here, wanting adventure. And he's sort of in a twisted monkey paw sort of way gets his wish. Because he
That's a good reference.
it truly is. And I'm sorry to say that and be super morbid, but he gets his wish. The only family he knows he has at that point is killed. By stormtroopers or whoever. I'm not going to name any particular person like some theory would want me to. But they are killed. And he basically is also in possession of objects wanted by the enemy. And his only choice is to go off with this mystical space wizard to go fight and destroy.
This just gets better and better.
I'm sorry. I'm going to try to not describe it in the terms of Star Wars while I'm saying it. This is what I should have done for the plot earlier. So he's going to join forces with a mystical space wizard. Him and that mystical space wizard are going to go to a shady part of town, discuss stuff with some guy who will shoot somebody at the drop of a hat, and his friend Sasquatch.
So what is your theme, though? You're kind of just saying the plot of the movie.
I'm sorry, I didn't get this chance to do it earlier, so I figured it'd be funny to do it now. But the theme, I don't know. I just feel like the theme is, he's going on an adventure. He gets an opportunity to go on an adventure because he has no choice but to go on this adventure. And then they meet up with the chick with the Cinnabons on the ear.
I'm gonna cut you off now.
Go ahead.
Yeah. First, I just want to touch on how you were describing this. Imagine being a studio executive.
Oh my gosh, no, that's the greatest thing in the world.
Imagine being think about it, you're our studio executive in like 1974 when Lucas started really pitching this. And imagine he walks in, and at this time, science fiction was more or less 2001: A Space Odyssey and Planet of the Apes. That was kind of the most successful science fiction at the time, which all is Rod Serling-esque Twilight Zone, or very much, I don't want to call it science fact, but it's science fiction in the sense of we will eventually get to a 2001-esque future. It's kind of like, this is where I hope to go. It's not fantasy. And you can understand now why you're looking at this going, and he walks in and goes, okay, I'm going to do all this, how you described it, giant Sasquatch creature, along with all these things. We're going to have a guy in a black suit, and he's going to talk through a respirator, or even know if he had that figured out at that point. And it's going to cost around $8 million. Like, imagine pitching that.
Yeah, back then. Yeah,
you got to give Fox a lot of credit back in the 70s for saying, you know what, we have no, and I know that in a lot of the documentaries when they're interviewing Alan Ladd Jr., he says this, he goes, I had no idea what the guy was saying, but you know what, he said it with such passion, you couldn't ignore it.
You know what, I can see George Lucas doing that, which, by the way, I've found out how I'm going to discuss the plot and the overview for the next movie. I'm going to do my George Lucas impression and do a terrible job of describing Star Wars, but while being technically accurate.
Considering the fact that he doesn't really like Empire Strikes Back is his least favorite of all the films, that would be a pretty spot-on thing to do. Well, when you look at Star Wars and its themes, you really can't do that unless, and this is just not just for this film, but for all of them, is you have to look at what George Lucas, the person, was going through at that time in his life. Because for the original trilogy, Luke Skywalker is George Lucas. And that's what a lot of this film is. And like you two were touching on, is that Lucas was this kid who lived in California. I don't want to say he was complete kind of like a loner, but he was more of an outsider than an insider. And what he is that he has parents, much like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, who kind of tell him, well, you gotta stick around the homestead. And eventually, push comes to shove, and all these events kind of just come into his life, and he's caught up in this larger-than-life adventure, which can be seen as basically everything he'd done prior to Star Wars. Most likely, probably THX 1138 probably being the example of being caught up in this larger-than-life adventure that he could never fathom would come true. And I think that's the theme of it. You have to look at what the themes of what George Lucas was going through in his lifetime up until that point. Mostly just the idea of trying to break free of the homestead mentality that his parents were trying to instill in him. Or at least his father, anyway.
Interesting. I've never... I know a lot about Lucas, but I've never looked into what was going on in his life during the making, like before Star Wars and around that time. So that is interesting. Kind of with those themes of, Luke being his kind of counterpart in his own adventure.
Well, that's also you have to look at the prequel trilogy, and just to touch on that slightly, is that if you look at Darth Vader in the original trilogy is the bad guy. Does he get redemption at the end? Yes, because that's the whole thing of what Lucas was trying to do with his own father. Lucas had issues with his father, and by the very end, the son makes peace with the father. The father's dying breath is everything is settled. But
wait,
then,
hold on. Vader is Luke's father?
I know, spoiler, right? You gotta put a spoiler alert in there. You gotta put a little bonk, bonk, bonk to give everybody a heads up.
I'm sorry, I'm watching these movies for the first time.
Oh my!
Oh well. God.
This month.
Oh man! Spoiler alert. But no, going back to the prequels and then by the time Lucas was making the prequels, guess what? He was a father, so he's starting to now look at things very similarly to what his father was going through, and that's why Darth Vader goes from being a villain to being a tragic hero, in that Lucas now sees himself as the bad guy, in that he has to make a lot of decisions that he chastised his father for and now can relate to them. Yes, and that's why you have that sort of, a lot of people who don't like the prequels feel that there was that shift in, again, making Vader space Jesus, in that Lucas's perspective on life changed. And that's why, in the process, Star Wars changed with the prequels. But again, that's a topic for a whole other day. But yes, the theme of Star Wars is very much how I feel is what Lucas was going through with his life at the time.
Interesting. Definitely something I've never thought of too deeply, apparently, even with all these years.
And just one more thing. If you guys ever do a THX 1138 episode, I call dibs on being the guest that week. I call dibs. Not to be that guy, but I call dibs.
No problem. I don't know if I'm maybe... trying to figure out where we could put that in. Somewhere, at some point.
It could be a week, a month, a year, a decade from now. I call dibs.
I'll keep that in mind. So I guess, Ellie, you got anything? Because I got something for our light discussion before final thoughts.
Well, just for themes, so one theme that especially this movie, and I mean obviously kind of a running theme for all of them, but it's just the fact that no matter your social background, your social status, your background, that you can all work together as a team and get this done, and anybody can be a hero. Like I've stated before, Hans isn't there yet, but he will be. You've got a princess working with a smuggler. You got a farm boy. So you have
who becomes a hero pilot and a space wizard. I'm just gonna.
You love Space Wizard.
I'm not saying Jedi for this episode. I'm just gonna use Space Wizard.
I like the Space Jesus too. That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
But no, Ellie, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And it's something. I mean, I feel like I've noticed it, but it's not something that I don't know if I put it together, but it's just having it pointed out is very interesting.
Yeah.
I guess in the sense of our discussion. So yeah, that is very cool that no matter where you come from, you can be anything you want to be.
That's right. Dream and hope, guys. That's right. That's our message today. You can do anything.
And George Lucas really shouldn't make movies. After what he's already made. After what he's already made.
Okay. Talk about pitchforks.
All right. So,
for the record, I love George Lucas. Like, I would sit there if I ever met him. I would not be able to stop shaking his hand.
Oh no, I think everyone involved would still.
We were at Star Wars celebrations, so yes, we saw the love and the hate.
Yeah, so I mean, we do love him here. It's just we also like to make fun of him. I guess before we get into final thoughts and everything, I mean everyone can of course put in something here, but I just kind of wanted to say the overall aesthetic of this movie is something that's very interesting. The way everything looks, everything. I don't know if it was intentional. Everything's very iconic. X-wings, TIE fighters, Death Stars, stormtroopers. Everything is very iconic and very instantly recognizable.
Even if you haven't seen the series.
Yes, and I know that there are, the empires, the Nazis, Germany. I know there is that theme there.
Right.
Quote unquote per se, but it's just I just want to point out that this movie definitely had very iconic an X-wing, a Y-wing. It's I know it's cheesy, but it's like they look like the letters, and that's why they probably designated that name. TIE fighters are very iconic. Like everything's very iconic, and it's something that maybe it's the year's worth of me watching it and being a fan of Star Wars, but it's like everything in this movie just jumps out to me as being something to where it's very easily recognizable, good, bad. It's a very there's no gray area of sorts here too.
Did you say gray?
Jedi discussion another day.
Sorry. Okay.
Space Wizard discussion another day.
Space Jesus.
But anyways, does anyone got anything before we do our final thoughts? Anything else we want to mention about this movie that we haven't already discussed or want to elaborate on that's not discussing special edition stuff?
One thing you brought up though was the fact that how it just kind of caught on. This is more of an abstract thing, is that, and you really don't get this anymore with anything. This is more with movies than anything. Is that, again, when Star Wars came out, it wasn't just like, it came out opening weekend, and everybody across the country and the globe loved it. It had momentum. It had to get some traction. It's where it's like, it opened up in 40 theaters initially.
Yeah, it wasn't that many.
No, because that's how they did things back then. It was practically unheard of to release a film now where they release it like in 4,000 theaters.
Well, and they wanted to change it too because they didn't want it to come out the same time as Smokey and the Bandit movie.
Oh man.
They were afraid it was going to crush it.
Next time on Zeng This, Smokey and the Bandit, year-long celebration.
Oh God, sorry.
I will take a pass on that episode.
Hard pass. Hard pass.
No, but I feel like that's one thing I think our culture really is missing, because we live in such a hypersensitive where everything has to hit in one moment or else it doesn't get a chance to stick. And I think the only other time that's happened within recent memory, again, this is talking exclusively movies, was probably something like Avatar, where it actually kind of, and that's a conversation for another day, but like it sat there, it lingered. Where now everything just kind of, it's flash in the pan. Like, think about like with movies. We go from having a movie like Logan, and then we have, I don't know, we talk about Guardians of the Galaxy, and then we're talking about War of the Planet of the Apes, and then next week we'll be talking about Dunkirk. And I feel like it's like we don't get that moment to ever appreciate or savor it. We don't get to savor things in pop culture anymore. Because we're too busy. It's like it's kind of like you're inhaling your meal just so you can get to dessert. It's like, okay, let's get this. Oh, here comes the next thing I'm waiting for. And I feel that's one thing that we don't get anymore, that Star Wars was able to really benefit from back in the 70s.
Yeah, and it had, like, 3 years in between. It's 3 years in between each movie and everything. I mean, now we're getting them, 2 years at least? I mean, but also getting another movie in between, too, as of right now with their scheduling. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think it changed the way movies are made. I mean, we could go on about, the impact it's had on culture and everything. But I guess, final thoughts on New Hope. Ellie, as an apology for being mean to you and making you go last every time, even though you said something that you shouldn't have, I'm going to let you go first on final thoughts.
Everything I say was supposed to be said.
Oh, snap.
Just think about that.
I was like, are you quoting something?
No, I'm quoting myself.
Okay.
If I say something, it's
I'm quoting myself for saying what I'm saying.
If I say something, it was meant to be said. Thank you very much. No, I just, kind of like you said, I don't want to, I don't want anybody to think we don't like this movie because it's fantastic. I
guess we kind of went into this we kind of have to be hard on this movie because everyone loves it.
Well, I mean, I guess that's your opinion. I absolutely love the movie. I think it's great. It was my first introduction into, the culture and what it is. And I wanted to mention really quick, because we didn't mention it and it has to be mentioned, is the music.
Yes.
Is
oh
ridiculous.
My gosh, how do we not? Yes. Okay, we messed this up before.
I know.
David, We're
sorry, David.
I'm saying this to you now.
I was
We did not mess
thinking
it
of
up this time.
That's right.
We did not mess it up this time, David.
But everybody knows the theme.
Yes.
Whether you've when you hear that sound,
dun,
yes.
Dun. I'm sorry, copyright.
Oh, sorry, whoops. But I mean, there's these huge productions that people go to where they do the orchestra productions of just the music. I mean, they still do that to this day, and people pay hundreds of dollars for these tickets just to hear this music. And it's such, to use your word that you flew out there a million times, it's so iconic. I mean, I can't imagine, like, if I hear the music, I get instant goosebumps. Like, just like, oh, it's Star Wars, I love that. And it's kind of like when we've had discussions about comic books before. You don't have to hear the people speak. You don't have to hear any dialogue. You could watch this movie with nothing else than the music, and you have a sense of if it's a dramatic scene. And obviously, music is well done in a lot of movies, but the music in this movie and the series in general is so amazing, and it's so impactful. So we have to mention the music.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you for catching that.
Of course.
It's something I feel that is in a lot of movies that we don't give credit to on here, and I think a lot of other people kind of miss it.
And without
thank
music,
you for calling us out previously.
Yes, thank you, David.
For that.
Yeah, and yes, we need to give some Air 5 hand claps or something to all the people, because without music, movies would not be near as exciting.
I can agree with that.
So,
I can agree with the soundtrack, and the score helps the movie tremendously.
Oh yes, so.
I guess I'll go last on this one. If that's okay.
I don't care. Sure.
All right. Have at it, Zach.
All right. I think, again, we could talk about this movie forever.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it's no fun to listen to three people say how great this is. Not to quote the Phantom Menace behind the scenes thing where you have Spielberg and Lucas going, "It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great."
It's no fun listening to people say this daunt over something. So you need that pushback. You need a devil's advocate. And I don't think anybody here was deliberately playing devil's advocate. But at the same time, though, you gotta give credit where credit is due. And I don't think you can overstate how impactful this film was. Never mind cinema, the culture wouldn't be where it is without Star Wars, because Star Wars gives us all these things that would never really be feasible. But at the same time, though, this is, again, not to go off on a slight tangent, though, but have you guys ever heard of Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune? Because that was another film that was supposed to be a sci-fi film that was produced. It was pre-production alongside Star Wars, in the sense of it was back in that mid-70s era, and I want to say it's because of Star Wars and because I did such a very pulpy, again going back, Flash Gordon-esque Saturday matinee version of space fantasy, that the very psychedelic and far out version of Jodorowsky kind of got sidelined. And it's things like that where it's like, could have Jodorowsky's Dune been into Star Wars? Probably not. But at the same time, though, is that who knows? Was what makes a movie great? Is it the movie itself, or is it that weird sort of it takes two to tango where it's the movie and it's where the culture is at that specific time?
Yeah, I kind of like that breakdown of it.
Mm-hmm.
For my final thoughts, I mean, this is how I was introduced to Star Wars. Was this movie? This is something that started off. I mean, to be honest, I mean, just the culture, everything around it, a franchise, an entire, I can't even begin to describe how much Star Wars has impacted everything. And it all came from this one movie and branched out from there. And I mean, technically, yeah, me and Ellie would probably still be here discussing some other movie on a podcast. But Star Wars is something we wanted to do first. Like, it is just such an iconic thing. And I just want to say that, this movie for me is just something to where, is it my favorite Star Wars? No movie, but it had to have happened, and I love it for it. And it, like I said, it I think stands the test of time with certain aspects of it, the story, the characters, everything like that. It's just so iconic, and that's just something for me that I just enjoy thoroughly about this movie, is that it was the start of something amazing. And looking back on it now, I think we can all say that it's just I don't think anyone could have imagined where if they watched this movie and walked out of the theater or walked out of wherever they saw it from, I don't think a single person could have said this is going to have X, Y, and Z happen to it. That had happened in the prequels, everything. So I guess this is me saying thank you, George Lucas. So,
well, a fascinating man.
I know. With that, we're gonna wrap this up today. Thank you once again for our guest, Zach, and I brought you on for a reason. A few reasons. I've mentioned it several times on this podcast, but why don't you tell our listeners why you were brought on and what you are here for?
Oh man, shameless plug time.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm rubbing my hands together. Shameless plugs. I, along with Zenger, are the host of the Star Wars Junk podcast. It is Star Wars Junk. We kind of talk about a little bit of everything. Our description is it's a cross between NPR and Coast to Coast AM. If you're radio fans, you know that basically lets us talk about anything, and we can be as obnoxious and be as completely wrong as we want, and we have all of our bases covered. Mm-hmm. So we range from any topic. Our ultimate goal is to not be pretentious. That's one thing I've realized with a lot of Star Wars podcasts, is that there's a lot of condescension. And that's the one thing our ultimate goal is. We just pick a topic, we talk about it. Zenger can attest to this. Outside of just researching the topic in the sense of having an idea of it, it's just meant to be a couple of guys sitting around talking. It's kind of like what you would imagine sitting at a bar with a bunch of people and you're just talking anything about Star Wars. So if you ever have a chance, please listen to the Star Wars Junk podcast. It would be greatly, mucho appreciated.
Yes, and like I said, I just wanted to bring him on to be a part of our Star Wars discussion, and I know that there's a lot of fans that listen to this, of ours that listen to this, and definitely check that. I mean, I'm on there as often as I can be. I really enjoy being a part of it. I just joined them recently, and I can say in the few records I've been a part of, I've had a tremendous amount of fun discussing Star Wars every time. So I just wanted to, let our audience know why we brought you on. So, Ellie, you want to do our rundown now?
Well, yeah. So, are we talking about the new? Are we mentioning Podbean?
Podbean will be mentioned on Monday's episode.
Okay.
Remember, these kind of detached from everything else.
Right, they are. Well, you have it up there, so that's
I changed it, so I made sure that we mention it now.
So do I say SoundCloud?
No, you say Pod. This is corrected.
Oh, okay.
We will tackle the fact of why we are on Podbean on Monday's episode.
I gotcha.
Ready?
Uh-huh. So if you want to check us out, please go to Podbean.
You can also find us on Stitcher and iTunes as well. And don't forget, if you're on iTunes, leave us that
5-star review.
You can find us on Facebook.
Zeng This.
Find us on Twitter.
At Zeng This.
You can find us on
Tweet.
Instagram as well, and that is at
Zeng This Podcast. We usually have pictures and images of what we're going to be talking about.
Also, you can find us on Twitch if you want to see us playing some games. That is twitch.tv/.
Zeng This.
If you want to help support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/
Zeng This.
If you want to find us on YouTube, of course, it's
Zeng This.
And
And we want to
finally-
get 100.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We want to get to 100 followers or subscribers on YouTube, so it can be www.youtube.com/zingness. It gives us the ability to have that if we have 100. So
Instead of a bunch of random
numbers and letters. So, and if you want to email us directly, you can go to
zingthis@gmail.com.
As always, thank you to our sound guy, Aaron, and I have been Red 8 standing by.
Greedo Ellie. I
And
shot
this is
first.
And this is Zach Starkiller. It's been an absolute pleasure for having me on, guys. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
DJ Golden Boy, play us out
89.
so I can shoot first.
Pew, 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 pew.
That's me shooting first.